I am delighted to welcome back to the show Mary Kay Greer, who, in addition to being a tarot mentor, friend, and colleague, and one of the great teachers of our generation, has also been one of our most valuable and committed tarot historians. So, who better to ask the question, what is the Rider Waite Smith Tarot? Which many of us think we know the answer to, and many of us are like, what are you talking about? So I think that, I wanted to ask you this question because whether or not you know it, as a new reader, you are being influenced by the Rider Waite Tarot deck even as we speak. So let's talk a little bit
Yeah.
about what it is.
It's a deck of tarot cards that was created in 1909 in England by two actually Americans who had moved to England and lived their lives there and belonged to a magical organization called the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn that had tarot as one of its core basic principles that informed everything in the magical organization. So they wanted to create a deck that could be used by anyone on the street, having these principles from the magical order implicit within the deck but not explicit. Nobody needed to know anything about how it came to those particular meanings and understandings. I don't know if I'm getting too vague here or
No,
not.
no, that's okay. That's good. That's good. I think it will be surprising to many people to realize that the tarot that most of us use is only from 1909. It's not from, ancient Egypt. So,
Or even Milan in the 15th century. Although
right.
influenced by that. Yeah.
Indeed. If we were talking about the origin of tarot, that's where we'd have to go. Indeed.
Yeah.
But we talk about the Rider Waite Smith Tarot because so in the English-speaking world, it's everywhere. It has been, I suppose, not really so much since 1909, but more since the 1970s revival, wouldn't you say?
60s among the hippies.
60s among the hippies. Oh, and
Somebody said, a historian of the hippie era once said, and of course every hippie pad, had its requisite tarot deck, which most of the times was a Rider Waite Smith deck.
right. And the reason it's called the Rider Waite Smith, would you like to elaborate?
Rider was the publishing company. Waite was the conceptualizer, Arthur Edward Waite, who ran one of the branches of the Golden Dawn, and Pamela Coleman Smith, who was an artist and worked in the theater, and also known to be highly psychic as well as having synesthesia. So she had many modalities that she drew from, was the artist of the deck.
And wasn't she, for a period, she was a member of the Golden Dawn as well, wasn't she?
Yes, in Waite's branch of it, yes.
Mm-hmm.
But she never advanced far into the degree system. You had certain learning that you had to memorize and you would take tests on, and then you would go through an initiation to the next level. And she basically stayed at the first two levels of it. So she technically was not supposed to know the most inner secrets of the Golden Dawn tarot system.
And yet there they are in the cards.
yeah, there they are, and so beautifully expressed. So I think Waite probably cheated a bit and told her some of this.
Or maybe she just received it or channeled it or whatever it is that artists do.
Yeah.
So why is it that the Rider Waite Smith deck has this vast influence over decks that have been published since then, do you think?
Oh, there's levels of meaning. One of my favorite ones is that even though Pamela Coleman Smith as the artist did draw from images that she had used in prior works and later works, there's still a sense that it's a universal deck that rather than a personal deck. And I kind of hate to say this, but there are some decks that I have tried out where I feel like I'm messing around in somebody's psyche.
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
creator's psyche.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
feels a little yucky, even if it
Mm.
is meant to be, really good and heartfelt. I kind of
Mm-hmm.
feel like I need to get out of their psyche. Whereas I've never
Yeah.
felt that with the Rider Waite Smith deck.
Mm-hmm.
And the questions about the minor arcana especially are based on kind of Arthurian Grail imagery that was used at the turn from the 19th to the 20th century by a lot of storybook artists. So she drew from that kind of stylistic thing, which some people see as old-fashioned, and yet it still speaks to us in a
Yeah.
way that some decks that try to be very, very modern only last a couple of years and then kind of feel like they're old fashioned.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
personally never feel her deck is old fashioned.
Yes, yes. There's something about the way it presents. Perhaps it's the boldness of the line, or perhaps it's the way that the costuming is. Story time costuming. It's not
Yes.
a particular. It not you can't quite pin it down. It's probably European. It's probably
Yeah.
medieval Renaissance. It's like who knows?
Yeah.
But the expressions are very relatable and also very, in many cases, ambiguous. Don't you think?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. There's a quality that you can really easily project onto them, whatever is going on in your own life, which is remarkable and often not the case in other decks.
I think that's one of the greatest strengths. It's because when either the reader or I guide the querent themselves into looking at the cards, they will tell a story often about what that character on the card is feeling or thinking.
Hmm.
And that I see as a projection, a mirroring of their own state, and we get to discuss that. So there's some cards that the range of meanings that people see in their expressions are
Yeah.
because they're so ambiguous is tremendous.
Yeah.
I think it's a huge strength.
Absolutely. And it's something that you said before about Pamela Coleman Smith having come out of a storybook tradition. That's so interesting because I didn't know that. And when you look at the illustrations, you literally feel like you're flipping through a storybook, and now you're in the story as well. And
Yes.
it makes your own life so much more interesting.
And that's a technique I use. You can use it with any deck, but it works so well with the Rider Waite Smith deck is that sometimes I'll ask the client, would you please make up a wild, crazy fairy tale? I want you to begin once upon a time with these cards as the story and expand on it and make it as crazy as you can possibly imagine. Think of me as a little kid and I don't want to go to
Yeah.
sleep till you've told me a story. And then I have them turn everything they say into first person present tense.
Mm. Mm.
I am a young page on a journey over this desert landscape, and I'm holding this stick that is going to help support me through my travels. I've got a
Yes.
feather in my cap because I'm light-brained, and
Oh, that's terrific.
so
Yeah.
and then we look at how the things that they've said in the I version are true in their own lives. And I'm
Yeah.
listening for those moments of resonance, of a ring, of sometimes if it's person to person, a difference in their body. Any kind of thing that
Hmm.
tells me the thing they've just said has significance. And we'll come back to that.
Yeah. Now, the imagery in the deck, I think, is, as we've talked about, so compelling. And I think one thing that's happened is that very often you'll see that those images show up in contemporary decks. Maybe the person doesn't even know why sometimes, but you'll see a black cat on the Queen of Wands, or you'll see
Yeah.
dogs on, on the
The
on
moon,
the moon, or things like that.
the
And
fool.
yeah, the Fool, you'll see, little dog on the Fool. And I guess I wonder why those images have taken on a life of their own when it's not like a dog is, you know, um, it's not like it has to be there. There's lots of things that could represent the feelings that those evoke. You know,
Yeah.
why are there roses on the death card? You know, why is this language that was established in some cases before the Rider Waite Smith deck? Why
Yeah.
does it keep repeating and repeating and repeating in contemporary decks as well?
And repeats in new and interesting things. I mean, it's
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
curious to think about with all the new robotics. And one of the favorite ones is to have a
yes,
robotic dog. And what if that's put onto the Fool card?
yes,
In some of the older decks, we've got lynx or some
yeah,
other form of a wildcat that is attacking the Fool.
yeah.
And so, why not a robotic dog on the Fool card?
Why not? Yeah.
So, yeah, but there's something about that kind of instinctual creature that has different kinds of thinking processes or needs and desires that it's
Yeah.
operating by that is dogging the fool.
I see
Couldn't
what you
help
did
but,
there. So,
yeah.
um, here's a question. How important do you think it is for someone who's just coming to tarot to have a Rider Waite Smith or Rider Waite Smith adjacent deck?
I, there's the Marseille Tarot deck, which is still very popular in Europe. And
Mm-hmm.
that is an incredible deck. Most
Mm-hmm.
people who use it either exclusively use just the major arcana, which are
Mm-hmm.
22 cards out of it,
Mm-hmm.
or don't pay as much attention to the minor arcana cards if they use them. I know somebody who would use the two parts separately. For big spiritual questions, it used just the
Ah.
majors. And he worked
Mm-hmm.
with the Marseille. And for
Mm-hmm.
mundane things, he would use the rest of the deck, the suit cards, just like a playing card deck. Okay?
Yeah.
So that's perfectly fine.
But I often hear from people who are just starting out and they say, yeah, but I don't like the pictures. Or I don't like,
Yeah.
very often they don't like the yellowness of the 1971 deck. But setting that aside, they'll say, I
Yeah.
don't like the pictures. What advice would you give to them when they're having that reaction to Rider Waite Smith?
Okay. Yeah, find a deck that you do like. I do. If you really want to get deeper into tarot, I suggest having a Marseille deck, a Rider Waite Smith, and then a deck of your choice. And it's wonderful to lay them all out on the floor somewhere and compare and contrast those different ones so that you get kind of a sense of this
Mm-hmm.
continuity that goes through them. Because the closer you
Yeah.
get to that continuity that's there in these various classic forms, the more you will establish, I think, some core principles
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
no matter how you vary in your understanding of what a card stands for, that those core principles kind of ground you.
I think that's very wise. I
Yeah,
think that, for every reader, there's this period, lifelong, really, of building a map of the universe on the tarot or coordinating
yes,
those two. And it looks a little bit different for everybody else. But I think you have a head start if you're dealing with images that everyone's been dealing with. At least you have
yeah,
an outline to start with. And I think that's a great idea to have a Marseille or 10, yeah, or a Rider Waite Smith or 10, and one other
yes,
deck that you love. Yeah. Yeah, no,
yeah.
that's really good.
And
Okay,
periodically
I'm
go
trying.
back to those because you'll go back at different levels and see them
Yeah.
fresh and new at each level that you go back. So pull them all out. If you haven't looked at the set of them in a couple of years, lay them down again and you'll see a whole new understanding of what your favorite deck is saying
Yes.
that draws from these others.
I think that's really a good idea, especially also if you draw a card of the day, for example. It's wonderful to take out other cards of, other versions of that card from other decks and see how they comment on the card that you drew. how it
Oh,
inflects
definitely.
through different images. There is also a tradition of magicians making their own decks. Do you have an opinion or a feeling about that?
Um, I think anybody that wants to create their own deck, great. Um, the expectation that your deck is going to take off and make you millions of dollars and whatever is far fetched nowadays, or at least once we get all of the tariffs off the books, we're going to be able to get printed decks so that someone can have a deck made from a company. People can order from that company, so you don't have to invest a huge amount of money in doing this. And so you can make your deck available to those who resonate with it, or collectors who want to have every deck that's ever been created, or any deck along the theme that they like. Or you can just keep it completely private. And now with being able to make AI imagery, you can create version after version of cards and decks for yourself, and then someday print it. But there's certain decks that are going to stand out, and as somebody who's getting on in years, I do wonder, 100 years from now, what is going to become the standard, like the Marseille and the Rider Waite Smith decks are today. Is it going to be something totally, completely different? Yeah. So, and I kind of wish I could peek in. I want to peek in 100 years from now and see.
If anyone can, you will. Yeah. So, here's a follow-up that I think would be helpful. So many people, when they buy their, first Rider Waite Smith deck, they're going to find the little white book inside the deck. How important is it for them to read and understand or memorize that little white book?
Don't memorize it.
I'm trying to keep a straight face here.
Yeah. If you already have a tradition that you're happy with, a way of looking at the cards and relating to them, and the deck fits with that, you can throw out the little white book. If you find the deck intriguing, I would at least look at it and see, is there a fresh perspective in it, or is it the same old, same old? If there's a fresh perspective because they put a cat, instead of on the Queen of Wands, they put it on the Page of Pentacles. Is there something going on in there that meant something to them? And if they don't reveal it in the little white book or a bigger book that might come with the deck, then you get to make up whatever you want. So ultimately,
don't you get to make up whatever you want, even if they did reveal it?
That's exactly what I was about to say. Yes, exactly. So, yeah. I mean, I'm constantly surprised when I open up a session to people just giving their impressions of a particular card, how different and uniquely they might see it. And I try to stay open to that. When somebody says, oh, the Empress, I hate her, she's so ugly and she's so conniving, I'm sitting there kind of in shock. But what I try to do is sit with it. Yeah, it's something significant has happened. Their energy rose up. There's something really important going on. And I go, to myself, I say, how is she that? In what way? Where is that in this card that I can affirm for that person that that's a piece of it? And there is, of course, in Jungian archetypes, there is the negative aspect of the mother and the father, and any of the archetypes have both their positive and their negative mother. So. Oh, that's part of the negative mother. How wonderful that you were able to see her. Some people don't ever realize. You're special. But it is important.
That's
And
that's great.
Yeah. And sometimes, as a reader, you can come back around to the other sides of the Empress that might have an effect. That, can you find the good mother in yourself so that it's not only the negative mother that comes up for you? Is there a way you can mother yourself that's different? Is there something in this card, the flowers, the water, the dress, the luxuriating, whatever it is in there, that is something you need for
Right.
yourself.
Right.
Yeah. So, accept
Yeah.
both the
Yeah.
traditional meaning
Yeah.
and, the fresh other meaning.
Whatever comes up. Whatever comes up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. I think that one of the things that I often see, especially because I know so many people who are super smart and like up, strong brains who are reading tarot, and they start reading and I can see them doing the math and trying to remember the meaning from the book, or, and I
Yeah.
think that one of the gifts that tarot gives us is release from all of that, right? It's
Right.
we can. I think that anyone who has never even opened up a deck before can, take those cards and see the pictures and tell a story instantly. And,
Yeah.
I think that there's a lifelong possibility of learning more about them, but that doesn't mean you can't get great results right from day one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I do want to mention that a very interesting thing is I teach a lot either in China or online with Chinese students, and I've had Korean students that they often use the Rider Waite Smith deck. That tends to be kind of the classic
Interesting.
baseline, at least among people I've
Yeah.
seen. And so it speaks to them. Now, I must say that Asian, East Asian, and many of the Asian people have much more knowledge of Western myth and basic symbolism than we've got of their
Then the
symbolism
reverse.
and myth.
Yeah.
So they do have a
Yeah.
bit of a head
Yeah.
start on that, but they still find it, very significant. So one of the things I've done with those students is looked at the Pope or Hierophant card, which can be either religious or any traditional teacher, people who teach from the book
Yeah.
type of thing. And I have made up a version of the card with Confucius there instead of a Pope or Hierophant figure. And then another one with a Mongolian shaman, and asked them if it changed their
Why not? Yeah.
interpretation of the card. What does it do when we shift that? And is there anything they would want to bring in from that understanding rather than just the Western perspective on it? And of course, in the West,
Fascinating.
so many of us have in the newly or more recently created decks substituted, instead of a pope-like figure, a guru of some kind, or even
Yeah.
a female
Yeah.
power figure. So there's not
Yeah.
like the high priestess, but a different kind of a teacher or leader on a spiritual level. So I think that we need to be aware that there are other cultural frameworks for the cards, and yet there's also something in them that even speaks within different cultures without having to make huge changes.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm
I
making
see what
sense
you
here.
mean. I see what you mean. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've definitely had people come to me from this country and say, I don't like this deck because it's so Christian, right? Right.
Yeah.
Because there is a Christian iconography that's sort of implicit in the deck. And yet, people who have not got Christianity as their sort of framework may have no problem with it whatsoever. So, I mean, I guess it just depends on where you're coming from and whether, you can. I actually think that's quite ironic, considering how many Christians really are nervous about tarot. So, but but
I keep telling them, but it's
at
a
the same
Christian
time,
deck and the oldest. Yeah.
Right, right. I mean, I think that tarot is an invitation to grapple with those issues as well, and and see
Yeah.
if you can come out on the other side of them, with a better understanding of yourself and the culture that you're either rebelling against or embracing. So it's
Yeah.
I think there's always an invitation in tarot on many levels.
Yeah. And one of the things about the Hierophant card is that I've had it come up for a building inspector. Now, the Hierophant is the interpreter
Yeah.
of the book, the good book, the Bible, whatever tradition it is. But it's also the building code
Right.
book. And
It's
the
also
building
the building code
inspector
book.
is
Yeah.
helping you understand what those building codes are requiring of you. It's the same thing.
Yes.
So
It's the
once
same
we
thing.
let
It's
go,
the same
yeah,
thing. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, let go of
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
particulars and
Yeah.
look at the specific situation.
Yes, yes. There's always the question of whether the card is a window or a mirror. And, and I think that really it's more like a door. It opens up a whole world outside of there that we're
Yeah,
free to explore. Yeah. Yeah.
yes.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much, Mary Greer. It has been a pleasure having you on, as always, and I look forward to the next time we have a chance to talk.
Oh, so do I. I can hardly wait.